Georges St-Pierre named the 3 people that he would fight if he came back. Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev, and of course, Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov. Saturday night, I was commentating at the Apex, Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev, battle of the Rafaels, and of course Fiziev won, and he called out another Rafael Nadal. Anyway, that aside, when I was there, I saw an old friend of mine, an old opponent, a guy that choked me out unconscious and put me to sleep in front of the entire world, and then took my belt. But one of the nicest people in the goddamn world, yes, of course, I'm talking about Georges St-Pierre, the lizard himself. He was there ringside watching the fight, and I got to have a quick catch up with him.
How are you, man?
What's up, brother?
Good, you?
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, I saw you were busy. I was like, I didn't want to come and
hey, that was a good time in Manchester.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I'll talk to you after. Okay, I'm down anytime, bro. Now, as you can see there, we were talking a little bit about Manchester. We had a night out together, him and his agent, my friend and I, Daz. We all went out, we went to a nice restaurant, we had a few drinks, maybe a few too many drinks.
Are you intoxicated?
Yeah. It was a good time. George is one of the funniest guys, obviously a great fighter, and as I always say, an absolute gentleman. But still, we're not here to talk about that. You don't want to hear about our escapades on a night out, or maybe you do. Maybe you'd rather hear about that. It was quite funny. But anyway, that aside, so George, obviously one of the best to ever do it. Potentially the best to ever do it. That is a discussion. He's certainly in there. Jones is one. Khabib is another. Of course, he's one of the people that he mentioned in the video. But Georges St-Pierre, 28-2, only 2 losses on his record, and he avenged both of those losses. So you could, in a weird way, make an argument that Georges St-Pierre is undefeated because he avenged the 2 losses. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
That's fucking weird, huh?
But anyway, people always talk about George coming back. Of course, he did come back after a 4-year hiatus, stepped up a weight class, and choked me out unconscious, as we all know. But I did hurt my ribs and I had some other things going on. But anyway, no, listen, the best man won on the night. Congrats to George. Couldn't have happened. Oh, there's not a nicer guy that I would have rather lost my belt to. And I truly mean that. Anyway, so people always speculate, will he come back? Of course, George, whether or not he's the greatest of all time, whether or not he's the GOAT, he's certainly considered the welterweight GOAT. Now, of course, we have Kamaru Usman, who's extremely dominant right now, and he is challenging that title. You know, there's a lot of people thinking that Usman is the pound for pound #1 and probably the greatest welterweight that the sport has ever seen. And this is kind of one of those hypothetical situations, and we'll never really know. As you saw in that video there, George said he's not coming back.
And I won't because I don't want to come back.
But he said that for 4 years, and he did come back and fight me. So you never know. You know, there's a lot of money at stake these days in mixed martial arts, and money is a big, big motivating factor. So if he came back, he said Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, of course, the first one, if you were to ask me the logical pick for George to come back and fight, it has to be Kamaru Usman. That would settle that discussion once and for all. Now, when you look at these two guys, I think Kamaru's the bigger guy. However, we have seen when George came up to 185, he's capable of bulking up. He was absolutely jacked when we fought. So he could bulk up and compete with him size-wise. Skill sets, I think George is probably more dynamic. Usman's a tremendous wrestler. George is a good wrestler as well. Both very explosive, both very strong, both very technical. On the feet, I think George is, that's where I say he's a little more dynamic on the feet, probably a bit faster. But we see, every time we see Kamaru Usman stepping into the octagon, he gets better and better. And he better hope so, because he's fighting Leon Edwards, August 20th, Salt Lake City. Leon finally gets his shot at Kamaru. And Kamaru, you know, he's probably at a slight deficit in terms of striking against Leon Edwards. So no doubt he's working on that all the time. So this is a hypothetical conversation. Who would win, Kamaru Usman or Georges St-Pierre? We don't know. But when you look at the reign of terror, the reign of dominance that Georges St-Pierre went on, yes, of course, Kamaru's doing the same thing. But as of right now, I'm going to say George. Just simply out of respect, you know, respect to Usman, of course, but simply because George choked me out. And that's how it works, okay? But in all seriousness, Yeah, I'd probably lean towards George, but we'll never know. Now, the other two people on there, Khabib Nurmagomedov, that was one that was spoke about for a long time. And George actually showed interest. And we saw George trimming down, looking extremely lean. And I was kind of concerned for him because I thought George getting down to 155 to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, that would be amazing. It'd be probably the biggest fight that the sport's ever seen. But the reality is that if George was to go down to 155, he would be compromised in terms of strength and things like that. Making weight, going down to another weight class isn't easy. But that would have been a great fight. If you compare the two, George is better on the feet. That's a fact. But the grappling of Khabib is unparalleled, in my opinion. So I think for one of the first times ever, George would be going into a fight where in terms of grappling prowess, in terms of takedowns and jiu-jitsu, he would be at a disadvantage. So he would be relying on his striking ability. But of course, George started off in Kyokushin karate, great kickboxer, very dynamic striker, lots of great kicks, flying knees, spinning kicks, all the rest of it. So it'd be fun. It'd be great. And that would settle once and for all who is the greatest of all time. I'll say it again. Jones, I'm a fan of his career and he was so dominant, but it's the steroids. That affects him, it does. Anderson Silva, the same thing. The steroids affect the legacy.
All you motherfuckers are on steroids.
You can't deny that. So we've got two guys that were clean, Khabib and George. If they were to fight, then who would win? Who would win? Let me know in the comments, because I honestly don't know who would win, you know? Again, I think I'd lean towards George.
This is #1 bullshit.
Maybe my judgment is clouded because obviously he did beat me. But I just think, you know, I just think he's better on the feet and I think he could probably stop the takedowns. But you never know. Khabib is so fucking good. And Khabib was so good, should I say, and I'm sure still is. And the way he just ragdolled people. I mean, that final fight against Justin Gaethje, oh my God. Oh my God, it was, I mean, that was something else. What a performance and what a way to end a career. And then the final guy, Khamzat Chimaev. And I love the fact that George said him, you know, and that just shows to the world. And it shows, well, it tells everyone, you know, Khamzat Chimaev is getting everybody's attention. He is the man of the moment. Yes, he was tested last time out against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is one of the top welterweights on the planet. Almost finished Kamaru in the very, very first round. Of course, he can wrestle, he can strike. But I always say adversity, going the distance against somebody tough, having to be the hammer and the nail at the same time is good for your career. You know, yeah, it's great being the hammer. You want to pick people up. You want to slam them on the ground. You want to finish them without taking a punch in the face. That's awesome. But we do like to see if somebody can get their ass kicked and then come back the round after. Be the hammer, but also be the nail at the same time. Because look, listen, in this sport, at some point or the other, you're going to be a fucking nail, okay? You're going to get hammered. You're going to get nailed. You're going to get driven into the floor. You're going to get head kicked, shin on chin, elbowed, flying knee. You're going to get H-bombed into next fucking year. UFC 100. Anyway, so, but we saw that from Khamzat Chimaev. We saw that he's able to take adversity. So, I think, and call me crazy because Kamaru and Khabib are incredible. But there's something about Khamzat. I don't know if George could pull that one off. Because that would be at 170. And that's so disrespectful. What am I saying to Kamaru Usman? You know, but these are hypothetical scenarios. I just, in my mind, I cannot conjure up the image of George beating Khamzat. And I'm not saying that I couldn't beat Khamzat because I feel like I could. I feel like I could beat Georges St-Pierre in my prime. Today, no, of course. I'm overweight. I'm out of shape. Okay. But I'm training. I'm trying to lose weight every single day. But yeah, it's an interesting one. You know, these are questions we will never have the answer to. But Georges St-Pierre came out at the weekend and said, yeah, if he was to come back, if he was, and he's always teasing the little son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Because he knows people are interested. And yes, he says he's not going to come back and he doesn't miss it. But he's still young enough. He still trains every day. He's always doing backflips and ice baths and stuff like that. The man's an athlete and he's still a fighter. So you never ever know. And he's still under contract with the UFC. And either one of those three, Khamzat, Khabib isn't going to happen. Khabib's gone. He's long gone. He's very happy. He is not coming back. He might coach the Ultimate Fighter against Tony Ferguson. Khamzat Chimaev, that's there for the taking. And Kamaru Usman. Kamaru would love that fight. I know that for a fact. Okay? Kamaru Usman would love to take out Georges St-Pierre so he can finally have done of him and be known as the greatest welterweight of all time, which he may be already. That's the reality of the situation. He's currently the pound for pound number one. He's an unbelievably dominant champion, but still, Georges St-Pierre, you know, much respect to this guy. What a career that he had. You know, he's just an inspiration, the consummate professional. Any young fighters out there, you want to model yourself on somebody like Georges St-Pierre. He never got out of shape. He didn't balloon up and down. He wasn't a big party animal. He had well-rounded skills. He didn't start off as a wrestler. He didn't wrestle at all. Started wrestling through his MMA career and just became so dominant at it that it became a massive part of his game. But still, there it is. That's the video. Georges St-Pierre teasing us all with 3 possible opponents if he was to come back. Anyway, hope you liked it. Enjoy, subscribe, ring the bell, and let me know what you think in the comments. Take care.